am so honored to have Miss Hailey Warner with us today on Discovering W.I.S.E. Hailey is a phenomenal friend. She is a leader in her community, without question. She is a mama to two beautiful baby girls and a bonus son. I got to know Hailey while her husband was doing a pretty massive remodel project on one of our little Guerrero projects. And it has been a blessing to get to know her. I know she has a ton to share today. She is the founder of the Warner Group at Keller Williams Premiere in Faribault, Minnesota. Hailey, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. It's funny when you were talking about how we were introduced, it brought me back to, I remember my husband specifically when he met you, he was like, you have to meet Carrie. And he's like, you two ladies would just hit it off. You're two of the same like breed.
Cut
And
from
I
the
didn't
same
really understand
cloth.
what he meant. But I'm like, now that I know you, I'm like, yeah, we are. We definitely are sisters from another mister or something.
There you go.
Because yeah, it's just been a pleasure knowing you. I'm sad you've moved away from Minnesota, but I just am so glad that we have a friendship and also a professional relationship, and I'm honored to be here. So I'm excited. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. You know, when I think about women with a mission and who feel called to love and encourage other women, there was no question that you made the top of that list of women. And so, we're going to talk about that today, what it is that you feel called to, what your mission is, and how that translates into your day-to-day life. So let's roll right in, huh?
Sounds great.
So when you think about your mission in life and what it is you're called to, I know that that's evolved over time, but what would you say that your mission is today?
Yeah. So interestingly, the last year, I really refined in on exactly what you're asking me. And when I spent the time really breaking down, like, what is my why and how does that impact what I'm doing? It's wonderful that it came together in a way that it encompasses so much of what I do, not just in real estate, but behind the scenes and around the scenes with my family and with my friends. And that's one thing I love about this industry is, and I've told agents this that are new into real estate or considering getting their license, it's like, it's a career that becomes part of your life.
Right.
It's not like you go to work and you shut it off. So for me, when I really tried to figure out and define my why, it was important for me to connect it to my whole life. So that being said, I would say my why and the mission of the Warner Group is really to meet people where they're at and support them in getting where they want to be. All the while helping them to see that there's often another level that they are called or they are meant to live in. But so often we do get stuck in sort of the worldly mindset of what we're supposed to be doing. And it's funny because when you ask me what my why is, I feel like it's almost, my why is almost challenging people to figure out their why,
That's a great why for sure.
Yeah. And so I think like it's just so wonderful to be able to have that approach, and it's so natural when I think about it. It's like, that's what drives me in my friendships, in my family dynamics, in meeting strangers, and in interacting with potential clients, which I don't even think of them as clients, but a lot of times they become clients just because they know I do real estate and I strive to do it on a level that's excellent. But the more important driver of what I'm doing is the real living stuff. So my current sort of Warner Group tagline is real estate and real living.
Well,
And
I love that you said, hey, it's kind of become all encompassing. I think that a lot of people in my lane, while I'm coaching on a daily basis or even working with people toward home ownership, we talk a lot about people try to separate things,
compartmentalize things.
Right. And that's very natural, as, hey, we're talking to women, right? This is a show that is by women for women. And I think, we tend to have a very integrated thought process where we don't compartmentalize as much as maybe men naturally do, right? But I think that a lot of people on that path to discovery, male and female alike, learn that it's part of just tapping into who you really are, right? Because then that transcends business, life, ministry, whatever it might be. You're just the same, you show up the same way everywhere you go. And so that's what I heard, that's what I captured from what you just said, is you've just figured out that, hey, you're going to show up the same way and whatever, it'll lead to business over here, intentionally or not, right? Because you're just being true to who you are. When you think about excellence and how that fits into your mission, I mean, how do you define excellence in your work and world right now?
Right. I think that it can obviously be measured in a very strategic and methodical way, and so that's important, is to have those measuring systems in place for, are we converting deals, and are we, all of those. But for me, I feel like how I really measure excellence is kind of a different approach. And that is, how I'm taking responsibility and caring for my role in this person's life. So when someone comes to me and they have a need, a lot of times it's real estate based, but just really understanding, like, it's an very important thing that they need help with. So just stepping up and taking responsibility and caring for them, and following through, that's something that, with this merge, I recently joined Keller Williams Premiere, and coming from a company that was a small kind of indie brokerage, which is a wonderful company, and going into a firm that has so many tools for follow-up and for tracking, and they just have an incredible back-end support. It was very important for me to find that, so that I can make sure that my clients are getting that, they're being prioritized.
Absolutely.
Because I do get pulled in a lot of directions with those needs of people, where they just have a basic need, or they need me to take time for them. And so I'm working with Keller Williams to really get some great systems on the back end, and with my team to really refine how we're enhancing the customer experience from the point of initial contact, where they come in and they express an interest in our services, if it's real estate or real living, and then what our servicing standards are for continuing to move them forward.
So it sounds to me like excellence to you, from a real estate perspective, from a business perspective, really looks like having an intentional process and system to support the needs, so that you can be that person you defined in terms of truly being present for your clients, and the other stuff, if you will, that needs to be taken care of is systematized.
Exactly. The things that can be are, and so, but I think I'm big on what matters more is the experience and how they felt at the end of it. But obviously, I understand the importance of numbers for my client, because the main factor when I talk to a buyer or seller about their concern, it's the numbers, So I want to honor that and respect that for them, and do all the things that we need to do to get top dollar for their home or to get them the best deal when they're purchasing. But at the same time, that really, really putting high value on how they're feeling, and that stress, and checking in with them and bringing in other resources to streamline the process for them. So it's a stressful time buying and selling. It's crazy.
It's in the top 5, right? It is in the top 5 most stressful things that people do throughout their life. So it
sneaks up. Like, I think people don't, when they're thinking about buying and selling, they're excited, like it's glamorized. And then all of a sudden they're like in the heart of the deal, and it's just like, this is so much. And I just like to tell people, like, this is normal that you're feeling this way. Unfortunately, if we went out and said, like, this is one of the most stressful things you're ever going to do it, people would probably shy away from it. But it's such a good thing. And that's, when I think of sort of my mindset, one of the things I know you wanted to talk about was kind of your mindset. And I think a lot of what I try to remind myself is the difficult paths oftentimes lead to the best destinations.
Truth.
Right. So it's, and that helps me encourage my clients that this hard time or this challenging time is a good thing.
Yeah.
Which oftentimes is the opposite of what society tells us.
Well,
if it's good, it should be fun.
Right. It's that whole instant gratification culture, right? Where, hey, I want it all and I want it right now. And that's just not the reality sometimes.
And I want home ownership to just be easy. Like, I don't want to have to deal with, it's like, unfortunately, that's a lie. It's not possible.
Right.
Hard things are good things, and good things are hard things a lot of the time.
I heard when I was listening to what you were saying, it reminded me of a Maya Angelou quote that says, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Right. And I think that that just resonated with me while you were talking. It was like, oh, this really does, it's truth, right? It makes a ton of sense to, if we're speaking to people's hearts, right? And you're paying attention to the tough stuff, and you're not just like, well, whatever, if you're going to be a pain, I'm just not going to work with you or whatever. You lean in and you go, okay, hang on, let me help walk you through this. Yeah. Right.
For sure.
When go ahead.
A lot of my business, the majority of my business, because I've had different people ask me now at this point in my career, I've been in the industry for 13 going on 14 years. And the last 5 years, my production has brought me up to, which I was recently called a mega agent. And I'm like,
congratulations. That's awesome.
Fancy. I would never think of myself like that, and I kind of chuckle when I say it, but it's like, what have I, a few people now are starting to say, what are you doing? And honestly, and I want to do more as far as how to
get more volume.
I don't want, if agents are watching this, I don't want them to feel like I'm minimizing their focus on what you can do to increase your business. But what really has worked for me has been focus on relationship. And all of my business is from referral or from, someone coming back or sharing it, or a friend, so it's, I'm not doing cold calling. I'm not doing door knocking. I don't send mailers to solicit business. It's all based on being out and about, building relationships, letting people know I'm a realtor, providing value, but most importantly, valuing them and where they want to get.
Well, and I think that is true no matter what, because obviously our listeners are from all over, every walk of life. And I think that point, it transcends all businesses. It doesn't matter, or ministry or life in general. I mean, we are created to be in relationship with other people, right? And I know that, people get stuck in all of the numbers and, doing calls or whether, so if you're in a sales related field or whatever, it's all about numbers and reaching out and, working with everybody and anybody. And I think that naturally, if you're focused on relationship, you're going to attract those people that you should be doing business with, right? The ones that are a part of your tribe. Same thing with friends or ministry or whatever. There are so many different ways to go and places to go in this world, right? You need to find the ones that speak to you. So it just is natural that you would grow with that focus. It's beautiful. When you think about your why and where you've come to today, I mean, I'm honored that I know a lot of your story and in growing up and getting to where you are today. When you think about that journey and you think about that mindset that you shared with us around, what is it you said? Good things are hard?
Right. Sometimes the hardest paths in life lead to the greatest destination or outcome.
Yeah. So when you think about that, are there particular things in your life that caused you to get to that place, or share a little bit of where that came from?
Okay. I'll try to do it in a few minutes because you know me, and condense it. So I would say, growing up, I was very, very fortunate to have a very healthy, safe childhood. And I was taught so many different things by my parents who are I would say my parents, my mom and my dad and my husband are the most influential people in my life. And my parents did a great job of just protecting us and keeping us safe and filling us with love and just positive things. And one thing that I remember thinking, which became a surface issue for me or learning, I guess, which went along with that, which is that when you do good things happen, which is a good theory. And I'm trying to
in practice, yes,
my girls that, because there's so many things as you parent that you realize they're good, but you have to be careful that they don't create something
unintended consequences.
Limiting.
Sure.
Right. So I know my parents had great intentions of teaching me that, if you do good things, if you treat others good things will happen. And for the majority of my childhood, that was true. So that was the truth for me. Yeah. And it wasn't until I was an adult, it was in 2012, and I had a situation come up where life contradicted itself, and so basically I was expecting a baby and found out about halfway through the pregnancy when we went in for our anatomy scan that, and going into that, I wasn't prepared for anything like the news I received.
Right.
Because now I think it's different, but up until that point, there wasn't a lot of talk about pregnancy loss. And maybe it was just that I was sheltered from that. But at that point, I experienced a big loss. We found out our baby had a condition that was fatal, not compatible with life. So we had some really tough emotions, decisions, and outcomes to face as a result of that appointment. And it was a huge crossroads in my life where I was faced with something that felt unfair. It felt confusing. It felt devastating. It felt like so much of what I was ready to embrace was torn from me, And it's a yucky time in my life that turned into a pivotal moment for my future and my growth. And I came to know the Lord on a deeper level through all of that. And it also it connected me to what now is, I think, my why. And one of my sort of daily go-tos is that difficult things happen to us and bad stuff happens, and it's not a result of, sometimes it's a result of things we do, and there's some accountability that needs to be faced.
Of course.
However, a lot of times it's a result of something that isn't related to us and we can't understand it. And we're faced at that point with two decisions. You know, we can either continue to dwell in the why and to let that moment take us down. And there's absolute justification if it would. You know, when you see bad things happen and people just let it take them down, my heart breaks, because I can completely understand why they are where they are. But on the flip side, there's also an opportunity to cling to our Savior, which, you know, for me, I found the Lord, and I found out that He offers a constant in an unchanging world, and He gives us a grace that we don't deserve, and He wants to bless us abundantly, which is not blessing us is not connected to the situation we're in.
Amen.
You know, it's connected to a peace and a joy in your heart that can never be taken from you. And
you know, I thank you first and foremost for sharing that story about Hazel, which I know one of the beautiful things I learned very quickly about you was that we were a part of that same club, and it's not a club that anybody wishes to be a part of. And for those who are listening, if you have dealt with the loss of a child, I know that both Hailey and myself would be honored to talk to you if you're going through that kind of trial. I think that becomes a part of your mission in life when you experience those hard things. Naturally, what I hear from you, Hailey, is that it's made you a more compassionate human being, right? Which it can make you bitter. It can make you angry. It can make you all sorts of negative things, or you can choose for it to be good. And I think that we all would love to honor those that we've lost in a positive way in this life. And what I see is that you're doing that, right, through that experience, which is beautiful. You're being a light. So when you think about whether it's that loss or, you know, growing up and just evolving over time, right?
Yeah.
What roadblocks or obstacles have you encountered that you're like, oh, and then I hit this wall again, and or I have to jump over this hurdle? What does that look like for you?
I would say, you know, going back to what we talked a little earlier about how the world oftentimes gives us this view that one I touched on already, is that if the good things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people. Wrong.
Right.
The other struggle, I think, is that relationships, if they're a lot of this falls down to the same concept, but if relationships are challenging, that means that they aren't the right relationship, you know? And I would say that was certainly an issue that my husband and I, when we were dating, faced, was the constant struggle of, we don't agree. We are like two complete opposites.
That I can affirm. Yeah. Absolutely.
And we were attracted to each other because of that. We are so good for each other because of that. But it was for a long time a big issue, because I think once you get past that excitement initial phase, there's a part of you that tries to, for some reason, I think it's human nature, we try to make those other people more like us, or maybe, and what I find is like, because I had some deep insecurities, and I still do, we all do. A lot of times the reason why I'm trying to make him like me is because I'm trying to validate something deep down that I don't really want to face. That's a thing about me that isn't so great.
Right.
And so our relationship is one of, we're very independent, but we come together when we need to. And he brings up things that I need healing in. My sister-in-law said this once to me. She's like, I think he's your healer. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, God's your healer, but he surfaces some stuff that, when I'm alone, when I'm single, like prior to marriage. And this, I think a lot of my friends that are in marriages or dating or single, when you're single, when you're on your own, nobody tells you that you're not perfect. So in your head, you're perfect.
Right.
And then you start
I can do no wrong over here by myself.
Right. Yeah, I'm good. I got it all figured out. And then you start being in relationship with someone. And this can apply to friendships too. And stuff starts to surface and you start to realize, gosh darn it, I'm not perfect. And neither are they. And that's where you can, again, choose one of two things. You can choose to withdraw and keep telling yourself you're perfect and they aren't. Or you can lean in and say, we are better together. We grow together. We challenge each other. It's a new perspective. It's an opportunity to dig deep and to surface some of those things that we like to tuck down and pretend aren't there, that seep into our lives. So I would say, answering your question, there's a constant challenge in relationship with
human beings or
anyone, where you want to just get defensive, and even situations with transactions. And I just constantly call myself to say, okay, one, what's this conflict that's come up? What's an area that they're wounded in, that they're projecting that on me? How can I love them through that? Or two, what is it surfacing in my own heart that I need healing in?
That's an incredible awareness space too. And we talk a lot about emotional intelligence and awareness on this program, right? We're talking about a variety of things from a mindset perspective, and just to have that wherewithal to stop and go, isn't that interesting? I wonder where that's coming from, and what do I need to do in order to meet them where they are? I think that,
exactly.
Yeah, all too often we head in with the desire to be right and be heard rather than to understand where the other person's coming from. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing to press into. Hailey, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you're like, you know what, I just need whoever's listening to hear this message from me this morning?
Looking at my notes. I would say that when I think of listeners that might be looking for something out of this podcast, I think of it naturally. It kind of makes me think of, okay, if I was a podcast listener, what would I be listening? Which is probably the ego in us that,
right.
That's where we answer a lot of these questions, is from the perspective of ourselves. And I would say the three things in my life that that caused me to struggle, where I needed encouragement, would be one, fear, overcoming fear, and two, overcoming struggle, and three, overcoming being overwhelmed. So those are like my three main challenges, I would say. And as far as fear goes, I've learned this a lot in the past few months with some big changes I've taken on that have been on my heart for a long time. So sometimes taking the smallest step is the biggest step. And it's just taking that first step. So That would be what I would tell people. If they're struggling, they're feeling a little paralyzed with fear, you don't have to have it all figured out. As a woman, it's a common tendency, I think, to want to know exactly
where it's all
plan
going to go.
A, B, C, D, then what? And I got to a point where I was so overanalyzing some of my career decisions that I think God did this. I had a box of notes and files on all my research I had done about this specific topic.
Sure.
And our gentleman that cleans our offices, he came in and it was sitting kind of by my garbage can and threw it in the dumpster.
Yikes. Whoops.
Yeah. So I had a moment of panic when I discovered that. And then I heard loud and clearly God say, Hailey, stop trying to find the answers. Listen to what your heart's calling you to do and just do it. You know, stop trying to get this perfect plan out there. And so that encouraged me to take that next step, which has really opened a ton of other doors for opportunity. So that would be my encouragement with fear. With struggle, I would say that, again, back to when we're going through struggles, to remember that sometimes the hardest thing that we're facing is actually putting us on a path to something wonderful. And thinking back to that first loss of mine, and then we ended up having a couple other miscarriages later, my husband and I, and as much as those were painful and I wish I could meet those children on earth and care for them, I know I will meet them again someday. And I look at my beautiful girls and Ethan too, my bonus son, and I think if all those struggles didn't happen, I wouldn't have you guys, you know.
And
same with my husband.
Beautiful.
So that would be my encouragement for struggle. And then the overwhelmed, I think as women, we are so easily quick to feel overwhelmed. And what I've given myself permission to do lately, which I am, you know this, I'm expecting another little baby in November.
So exciting.
So I've been tired and I've had to give myself permission, but to do this. But when you're overwhelmed, it's okay to step out, to tap out and say, I need some rest. I need some me. I'm scared. I'm sad. Whatever it is, these hormones that I get now are like, sometimes I just need a time out from mama. It's okay to do that. But then I feel that God gives us rest and he encourages us to rest to prepare us to be ready. So knowing that when you're going into that resting season or moment, there's something wonderful that you can anticipate and not just go into the resting and stay there and hibernate forever. But remember, we're called to get back out there, get back up on that horse and ride again after you fall off.
I love that. So take that first small step and give yourself permission to rest.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Those are both really...
Rest during the struggle and you'll get there.
You know, that's a really, really important thing that I think that a lot of us struggle with, right? Just, we can't, one of the gals that I recently interviewed talked about not being able to pour from an empty cup, right? I mean, we have to step away, get refilled, get refueled so that we can go forward and continue on our missions. Hailey, thank you so very much for your time today. How can folks connect with you and help you with your mission?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. And thank you so much for having me. This has been a joy. Yeah. This is my first podcast, by the way. So,
well, you did great.
Yes. I'm stepping into the yes. So I do have a Facebook page, which is under my personal Hailey Warner with Keller Williams Premiere, that everyone is welcome to please like and follow me. And I'm in the works of launching a new and improved website. And once I do, that Facebook page would be a great place to get more information. And that will have both real estate and real living information, services, educational pieces. And I'm just excited to meet you all, and I appreciate you watching and the love. And Carrie, I miss you, but I hear you're coming back to Minnesota in a few weeks and I get to see you.
I am, and I am planning on it. Thank you so much,
Sounds
Hailey.
great.